Hello, in this video we will understand about the hypoxic inducible factor 1 alpha. It is also known as the HIF1 alpha. It is the subunit of the heterodimeric transcriptional factor, encoded by HIF1 gene. So the chromosome 14 is the location for your knowledge, and it is involved the cancer progression. But the short duration of the hypoxic inducible factor 1 alpha activation will lead to repair the DNA, repair the mitochondria, and the certain type of the growth factor activation. Let's understand about the chronic hypoxic shock will lead to cause cancer, how it is possible. So here is the hypoxemia in the blood. The hypoxemia means the oxygen level low in the blood. So hypoxia mean is the cell stress which trigger the biogenesis of several function lead to repair. Hypoxia mean the low level of oxygen in the cell. Whenever the low level of the oxygen in the cell will lead to activate the HIF1 alpha and the glycolysis increase due to the HIF1 alpha. HIF1 alpha will activate the certain type of enzyme which that is important for the glycolysis, but inhibit the oxidative phosphorylation in the mitochondria. In this, the oxidative phosphorylation will not occur, so the mitochondria will damage and the not repair due to the PGC1 alpha inhibition due to the HIF1 alpha. And in this, the hypothalamus also trigger the anterior pituitary gland to activate and also bind with the HIF1 alpha and beta to activate the growth hormone gene. And in this, the growth hormone will increase due to the hypoxia in the pituitary gland. Growth hormone will target to the bone growth, IGF-1, RBC production for the stress response, and the more RBC will recover, and next time the hemoglobin will increase for trapping the oxygen. So during the hypoxic shock, so hypoxia basically not any problem if the short duration. So the glucose metabolism, more glycolysis and lactate production, and due to the glucose metabolism, the enzyme synthesis and the bone development, the IGF-1 stimulate for bone development. Remember about that things. This short duration of the hypoxic shock is important and very beneficial. But the causes is for chronic hypoxia is asthma, pneumonia, bronchitis, lung infection, snoring, sleep apnea, lacks oxygen environment, incomplete combustion in room. For example, whenever you will put the burning coal into the room. Let's understand about the hypoxia and the normoxia in the cell. So remember about that things. The low level of oxygen will lead to continuously HIF1 alpha activation, and this HIF1 alpha activation will lead to glycolysis chronically, will lead to produce more ATP, but the anaerobically and the aerobically less. In this, the mitochondria will damage to leak out the electron and will lead to reactive oxygen species, lead to cause more stress. For example, the hypoxia will lead to activate the HIF1 alpha and not degrade. In this, the HIF1 alpha and beta will lead to activate the glycolysis more and the glutamine metabolism. This both things is the anaerobic fermentation. It is also known as the ancient fermentation. This enzyme required and this enzyme production due to the HIF1 alpha response. And in this way, the growth hormone, the IGF-1 and EGF and VEGF will lead to angiogenesis. Mitochondrial electron transport chain will damage, and the PGC1 alpha will decrease, will lead to decrease the electron transport chain function. HIF1 alpha will lead to proline hydroxylation conjugation. The PHD with the combined with the oxygen lead to hydroxylation of the HIF1 alpha will lead to VHL activation and combine together to form a VHL HIF1 alpha complex to ubiquitination. The ubiquitination to the ubiquinone combine together lead to proteasome formation, and this proteasome formation will lead to proteasomal degradation, and this proteasomal degradation will lead to cause peptide formation. And in this way, the degradation of the HIF1 alpha in the normoxia will lead to not activate more glycolysis to produce ancient fermentation to produce more ATP, but the oxidative phosphorylation will activate. In this way, the oxygen will consume will lead to produce more oxidative ATP in the mitochondria. In this way, the PGC1 alpha also activate due to the HIF1 alpha. Because the HIF1 alpha when decreased, so the PGC1 alpha will activate. For example, Warberg effect. Warberg says that the glucose metabolism will lead to glycolysis and pyruvate will convert into the lactic acid and not go into the electron transport chain but produce more ATP from the anaerobic fermentation. Here is the NADH, and the Krebs cycle will produce the NADH to use to electron flow into the electron transport chain in the complexes, while the proton will pump out and the proton pump in again to produce ATP 4 proton. So the 2 proton and 2 electron combine with a half molecule of oxygen to produce water, and in this way the oxidative phosphorylation will produce 80% ATP, and in this way the PGC1 alpha activate more if the HIF1 alpha will not activate. Glutamine is additionally you should understand with the Krebs cycle to produce more ATP anaerobically. Anaerobic fermentation 80% while the ATP production, while the 20% aerobic. It should be opposite. 80% aerobic but the 20% anaerobic, but it will be disrupt will lead to activate more HIF1 alpha due to the hypoxic condition, and in this the PGC1 alpha basically decrease will lead to activate the not activate the mitochondrial health and the repair of the mitochondria, and HIF1 alpha activate and inhibit the PGC1 alpha, while the HIF1 alpha basically will lead to progress the anaerobic fermentation will lead to cause cancer.